On this episode, we set boundaries and tend to the territory within. We exert tons of energy trying to keep people out by drawing lines and building up walls. But the person who really needs the boundaries exists on the inside. Tune in as we speak about how to establish our gardens and produce good fruit, all while loving ourselves and others in the process. This is Life Club. I'm Tashima Jones. Welcome to Life Club. I genuinely believe personal development unlocks the door to the abundant and wonderful life we all already have. I also believe we must be intentional about seeking out that life in order to find and fulfill it. I am so grateful your journey of discovery has led you all the way here. Let's keep moving forward together. Once again, welcome to Life Club with me, Tashima Jones. Welcome. You are tuned in to Life Club with Tashima Jones and my homegirl Sunny on the boards. I absolutely love Life Club because we give ourselves so much grace. We are excited, as always, to be here. We extend grace to ourselves.
That's right.
And we shimmy and shake a lot of things off.
Shake it off.
So today's topic is on setting boundaries. Last week's show really impacted me. I found myself listening to the replay via podcast, and I always, laugh to myself and say, I'm not only the host, I'm a listener, and like my Biggie voice, I'm not only a client, I'm the player president.
Right.
I started to focus on boundaries. I asked myself if I even had any, and the truth is I didn't. There's certain things I just wouldn't accept or wouldn't do, but those things were based on morals, more like principles versus boundaries. For example, I don't plan on doing drugs or hurting anybody. I just don't. I do not plan on that. And with that being said, I started to look a little deeper into this concept. So my first aha moment or revelation, if you will, was people versus me. When we speak about boundaries, it's usually based on what we will or won't allow others to do to us or in our presence. But we must realize that the boundaries we set for others are bound to be crossed. At this point, we must ask if we can even set boundaries for other people, especially in regards to who we are. If we haven't learned anything on Life Club, we have learned that we cannot control another person. From here, I was led to an even deeper aha moment. The boundaries we set for ourselves towards ourselves. So I continue to meditate on this idea of boundaries. I went from making a list of hard yeses, like we learned last week, and hard no's. For example, I refuse to rent out the real estate of my mind, to toxic thoughts, to I agree with heaven's perfect will for my life. And eventually I came to discover the following truths about boundaries. So you already know, when we know the definition of a thing, we are able to use it appropriately. So I looked up the word boundary, and it indicates a border. But more importantly, what we need to pay attention to is the territory within that border. People tend to focus on boundaries with they focus more on the walls that are protecting a specific territory versus the territory itself. And moving forward from that, I started to think about this idea of me being a territory. Not necessarily geographic or where I live, like my home or anything like that, but Tashima, the person, the being a territory. Our body is a temple. So I started to think about what that kingdom on the inside of me should be built on. What are the principles of that territory? What are the purposes of that territory? And the first thing that came to mind was identity. So when you look at yourself as a territory, when you look at yourself as a kingdom, what do you represent? What is your identity? Who are you? We always come back to that question. Who am I? Who am I? Because the reality of it all is that if you don't know who you are pretty much aimless in life. In my opinion, again, definitions really tell us how to appropriately use something or how to appropriately move in a certain direction. Knowing who you are is everything. It really is everything, because if you look at a chair, if you don't know what that chair is, if the first chair ever made, if you weren't told what it was used for, it would be worthless. It would have no value to you, or you would inappropriately use it, and then you might hurt yourself, or you might put so much stress on yourself when there's an instrument of rest right in front of you. So knowing who you are is so imperative to the quality of life that you have. And even more important, when we are setting boundaries, knowing who you are better equips you for engaging with other people and with life itself. So I have been Sunny, text me this morning and it's so was so on point to what I've been experiencing in my territory, within my kingdom, my temple. And I was just being questioned a lot, like a test.
Right.
Being questioned a lot. And one of the main questions I was being asked was, when did you stop seeing yourself as enough?
Ooh.
When did you stop seeing yourself as enough? And I kept, it led me back to my 5-year-old self, my 14-year-old self, 17, 18, 21, 25-year-old self.
Right.
And for other people, it could be the 35-year-old self, the 45, 50, even 60, 70, 80, because life is still happening. So being asked that question was a deeper level of understanding who I am.
Right.
And it also helps to know why I do what I do and why I interact the way that I interact, and not only with myself, but with other people. So there's this surface level of identity, just knowing who you are as a spirit being, knowing who you are as a human being. And then there's this deeper realm, if you will, about these moments in your life that shifted how you saw yourself. And that's in the umbrella of identity. What happened to you when you were 5 that made you feel like that made you stop feeling like you could fly,
right,
or made you stop feeling like you could be a princess, or, what happened in that moment? What happened to you when you were 10 or 11? What experiences did you endure to make you shift the person you saw yourself as being? So much goes into identity when it comes to value of self. And, you look at scripture and it speaks about loving others as you love yourself. And so often we love others and don't love ourselves at all. You know what I mean? So we have to really recognize who we are, and more importantly, how we see ourselves. And in order to dissect how you see yourself, you have to understand the images or the experiences that kind of shape that identity and shape that reality of yourself. So going back to just this whole idea of boundaries, first and foremost, we have to lay the foundation of our identity in that territory, in that kingdom, if you will.
So with boundaries, I think that the biggest part that I had to learn with creating boundaries with people is being okay with standing up for yourself when you have the feeling that somebody may trying to be taking advantage of you. A lot of times, especially if the person is in authority, you kind of kick back your own instinct and go, no, I'm not going to say anything, but being able to stand up for yourself and say, no, I feel like this is not right, and I'm going to say no, and that hard no. So let you know that I peep game, I know what you're doing, and I'm going to create this line so that you can't take advantage, because that's how you protect yourself. Boundaries are there not to block you in and make you be closed off to people, but to really you allow grace to how much people have of you. You can't give all. You can't let everyone in. You have to really protect yourself because not everyone means well,
And so I'm just going to like pick that apart because, again, I really believe that so often we are in this process of trying to protect ourselves and trying to, make sure we aren't hurt, we aren't, taken advantage of. But we always have to go back to why is it that we even feel like we have to defend ourselves in the beginning? You know what I mean? What was it that made you feel like my boundaries and my borders are going to be like armed and dangerous and nobody can come in this, and I mean, a lot of it is sometimes in just society and culture and kind of like every man for himself type of mentality. Sometimes it's, we were hurt, so we just don't ever want to feel hurt again. But something you said about standing up for yourself and possibly finding yourself in a situation where it's like, this is how I feel, but I don't want to say anything. Even that in itself, why is it that we feel that we can't speak up for ourselves just naturally?
Right.
So, and it goes back to laying the foundation of your territory.
Right.
Because if you say to yourself that within my territory, within my domain, I am going to, with tender loving care, express how I feel about something with wisdom, of course, then nobody should be able to stop you from doing that.
Right.
So again, going back to you setting boundaries for yourself, towards yourself, because again, we can't control anybody else. So if in my kingdom, principle number 7.5 in Article 12 says that Tashima speaks up for herself when she feels the need to, then that will just become automatic.
And you won't care what anybody has to say about it.
This is very true. And like I said, speaking the truth in love, being wise and how we say things and when we say things is key as well. But definitely laying down these principles for yourself to really stand on and say, okay, Tashima is going to nourish her mind, body, and spirit. Tashima is going to take care of herself in these certain areas. Tashima is going to check herself when she needs to. Again, boundaries for, created by us towards us.
Right.
Just laying down these principles on how we're going to run our territory and our domain is so important, because the more we work on ourselves in those spaces, the more natural it will become. I've always admired people who kind of just, said what they wanted to say. And again, using wisdom, because every time we speak up for ourselves doesn't necessarily make us the strongest person in the room.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's why our boundaries need to become a way of life for us. Our, principles that we set up for ourselves need to become a way of life, because the more you grow in those things, the more you do them effortlessly and the more you can bear fruit from them. The next, pillar of our territory would be purpose. And again, who am I and what's my purpose are foundational for a quality of life, foundational for understanding who you are, and foundational for just living to your fullest potential. Now, what I've come to know is that purpose is not what you do, but it's who you are. Purpose is really intertwined into your identity. Just like a tree has a purpose to bear fruit, it has a purpose to have shade. It even has the purpose of giving off oxygen, so that we can inhale that, and us giving off carbon dioxide. So the plants, literally, purpose is in our DNA. We are serving so many purposes that we know not of. We are serving purpose to our earth, to our environment, and to the people around us. So purpose, again, is who you are. It's not what you do, although it manifests itself in what you do. And knowing your purpose is so important to functioning on an everyday basis. Another one of Sunny and I conversations is that, oh my gosh, we had a revelation on the phone yesterday, we're living in the now.
What?
And when you are in this flow of purpose, you truly, truly find yourself living in the now, where it's like, I'm not waiting for a dream to manifest 10 years from now. I'm like, every single day, there's something to look forward to. There's something that we're experiencing. There's something that we're learning. There's things that we're unlearning. It's
making
just
mistakes.
Not even, there are no mistakes.
Right,
we're
lessons,
just learning. We're just learning.
Right.
And the beauty in that is that whole, like, the education of life never ends.
I think laughing at it in hindsight is the funniest thing, and realizing that when you do it, you can do it and let it go and laugh and be like, oh, all right. That's so big, though.
It's freeing.
Yes,
it's freeing.
It really is.
It's freeing, especially for some of us who've had, like, the syndrome of perfectionism.
Me.
Totally me.
Right.
Like 100,000% me. And then the more, I mean, I believe it was Michelle Obama's speechwriter. I believe it was her, that she was having a conversation. Her speechwriter actually was like talking about an experience that she had, with Michelle Obama. And it was just like speaking about how you don't know what you don't know, and speaking about how in order to understand things, you must experience them. So my thing is, how can you live this perfectionist life when you don't even know what the next 5 minutes holds?
And everything happens for a reason. And that's the same thing when you say about debunking that the territory in your mind that makes you believe you're supposed to do things a certain way. But no, that's not it. That's not it. Flow with it, go through it.
Yes, 100%. So just, going back to setting boundaries, we've talked about your identity and really understanding who you are in that kingdom that you are in charge of, and in charge of maintaining and sustaining all that good stuff. And then going into your purpose. It's a being thing. It's like you embody purpose. You are purpose. Like, you were created. It's kind of like going back to that chair. Like, the chair didn't have to try to be a chair. You know what I'm like? The chair wasn't like, oh my goodness, I am going to move forward as a chair. Like, I want to be a chair so badly, and I'm going to do all these things to be a chair. No, the chair just was. Because that's what it was created to do. So instead of us trying to create our own lives and create our own purpose and create our own identities, we need to truly discover what we were already made to produce, what we were already designed to be. And that is it's so important when it comes to, like, this competitive nature and this feeling of, like, coveting other people's gifts and talents and lives and all that stuff, because it's like you can never be somebody else. And
I wanted to say to you, how important is it for you to follow your own intuition? What you saying that, like, listening to your own voice, because other people's voices will tell you how important is it to you to really follow your own instincts in this space and saying, you know what, I don't feel like this is right. This is the way I should go. Even though everybody else is telling me this, I'm trusting myself this time. Because what you're saying and following your purpose is really tuning out the other sounds and voices and really trusting your own gut.
I mean, I think I don't know why I feel like I'm about to cry. I'm just like a hot mess. I really struggled with decision making, and I really struggled with finding value in my voice. I was very, I guess, directionally addicted, where I always needed somebody to tell me what to do because I wasn't sure of myself. So it's like, well, if this person tells me and I go, at least I have a clear direction as to where I should go. And I mean, it goes back to grade school. Like, you're given a set of classes that you have to take. And once you get these credits, you graduate. So it's like a blueprint. A lot of us are addicted to direction, and just knowing, okay, this is the path that's set for me. Let me just go. Like the whole American dream thing. You go to school, you get a job, you get married, white picket fence, 2.5 kids and a dog, and you should be happy. But honestly, it was in that moment of my life where I was literally living that life where I was like, I did everything I was told to do, and I'm not happy, and it's not really working for me. And that's really when I just had that moment of sitting myself down and speaking, to the Creator about what I'm supposed to do. And eventually, the more I started to listen to that voice, the more I began to trust that voice. And I don't think a lot of people get past that mark or that crossroads where it's like, am I going to decide to go with my heart, or am I going to decide to go with whatever other voices I'm hearing? But the more you follow that voice, the more you're able to trust it. And a lot of people don't get to that point where they finally just say, hey, I'm just going to try it.
Right.
You know, and honestly, we have to come to the end of ourselves and just try it. We have to come to the end of fear and just try it. And the more you try it, the more you see things work out for you, the more you are able to go in that direction.
And align into your purpose.
And align into your purpose. Yeah. And it's like, you know that voice. You know, it's like, you know, you mentioned hearing other voices. You could hear 1,000,001 voices, but you know the voice.
The voice. Not your mother, not your cousin, not the teacher, not the pastor. Your voice.
Like, you know that voice, and you know that this is the way that you should walk.
Right.
And too often we ignore that voice, and then we fall on our faces, and then we boo-hoo, and then we cry, and then hopefully one day we'll get it to where it's like, you know my voice, follow me.
Trust
me. And so just understanding that, and that, like you said, aligns you with your purpose. And what I've realized is that your purpose leads you to you.
Yeah.
Your purpose really delayers the misconceptions that you may had about yourself, or the things that maybe were planted in you from other, you know, sources. And I just feel like we need to recognize that no other human being is any greater than you. And Steve Jobs said this. He was like, you know, as you get older, you realize that the person sitting next to you is no smarter than you. So if they can change the world, so can you. You know what I mean? You start realizing that. So when people sow seeds into your life, it's so important for you to understand that oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, that person is just speaking from their set of experiences and the way that they would do it. And they're good-intentioned people who may not have the right piece of advice for you. And we never know what other people are going through. So while I do believe that we need each other, and we need to connect with each other, and we need to communicate with each other, we also need to filter the voices from the outside through these principles of our territory and these principles of our domain. Super excited to be talking about this topic of setting boundaries.
I wanted to talk about the purpose that we mentioned prior to going on break. I think a lot of people have the impression that when you find your purpose, it's going to be through like having a checklist of goals. And once I accomplish all of these goals, I'll finally be able to like find my purpose. But for myself, and Tashima may agree for herself also, you know, I found my purpose through my like dark night of the soul moment. It wasn't through me like accomplishing everything, not going to college and getting my degree, not getting married and having kids. Like she said, I had all of that and it still did not fulfill me. It was really through me shedding away a lot of the things that had been pre-programmed into my mind, and really identifying who I was as a person without those things, and being in my natural bare state of I don't want to call it even brokenness, just being bare. Sometimes we embrace it like, oh, I'm broken. You're not broken. You know, you're looking at yourself for who you are and the things that have happened to you. I think you know, when you're finding your purpose, you should look in that moment. That's where you find it, not just checking off the to-do list. You know, it's about identifying the dark moments and even looking at how you went through it and overcame it. What happened in those dark moments? And that's where you should find your purpose, because you can identify how you got through it if you put the intent to get through it and not just be in it.
You speaking about the soul. So the more I develop and grow, the more I recognize that life is really about the soul. And so many of us are looking for prosperity in the earth when we really need to focus on our soul prospering. It's so important for us to recognize that prosperity comes from within. You can only manifest what you embody on the inside. And even for those who do have material wealth, the material wealth can even be tainted when your soul hasn't prospered. I have been fortunate enough to work with people who are wealthy, to look at hundreds of accounts, see millions of dollars. But those are the same people who are calling and worrying about the stock market and worrying about their assets and literally like freaking out on a daily basis. So is that true wealth? Is that true prosperity? Because what the material wealth is doing is just amplifying what the soul is. So take like money is an amplifier. It's only going to manifest what's on the inside. It's only going to heighten it. So the more money you have, if you are a hoarder, you're just going to save more money. You're just not going to spend more money. If you are addicted to something, you're just going to increase that addiction. You're just going to have more shoes in your closet or more access to drugs. And, it's just going to amplify what's on the inside of you. So the true goal and the true purpose is for your soul to prosper. And all your soul is going to do is just activate those things on the outside of you. And that is the true journey to wealth. It is being so wealthy on the inside that these things just come out of you and you just produce this fruit. And again, purpose is an issue of being, not of doing.
Right.
And the more we listen to that voice on the inside of us, the more we focus on developing our minds, the more we focus on developing spiritually, the more insight that we have, the healthier our relationships become. Because just like hurt people, lovely people love people.
Right. It goes both ways.
It goes both ways, So one thing I know for sure is that you manifest what's on the inside of you. The other thing I know for sure is that you can't be afraid to manifest whatever mess is going on the inside of you.
Right.
And I think sometimes we hide from growth because we don't like how it looks and how it smells and what it's doing to our friendships and our relationships and all. We don't like the toxicity that we're producing, but you have to allow yourself to go through that beautiful, ugly, chaotic phase in your walk. You have to allow yourself, because you're going to keep bumping into the same wall. The same people may have a different name, but it's the same energy, the same spirit. You're going to keep running into those things if you do not allow yourself to release. Now, I'm not saying go out and hurt people, and I'm not saying to not move forward in wisdom, but what I am saying is allow yourself to go through the phase of growth. Going back to that baby that we talk about, that baby is learning how to walk. The baby's crawling on two knees, and then they go to that one, when the baby go on one foot
right.
on the floor, and then the other knee, that scoop. Allow yourself to grow. Allow yourself to become. Allow yourself to delayer. Writing and meditation really helps because it keeps you in like a safety zone. You know what I mean? It allows you to express certain things without necessarily engaging in other people, because you don't want to hurt the people around you and you don't want to lose friendships. Now, some things are made to unravel and disappear, and that's okay. But I think when you stay in this safety zone of prayer, of meditation, and of writing, it allows you to detox without really engaging other people in that process. And then on the other end, some people are sent to you as lessons. You know what I mean? Some people are sent to you, and iron sharpens iron. So never forget that. You may, be in this space where you feel like you're just the underdog and it's like, oh my gosh, why can't I get this right? But trust and believe that the person on the other side of that, God willing, is using you as the lesson as well. So when you speak about, just that the soul arena and just going through some droughts and going through some negative things, it's really not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know if I shared this on the other show, but I just got a revelation of open heart surgery and how your chest literally has to be cracked and cut open in order to perform this surgery to to save your life. And what people don't recognize is that when you're being cut and you're being torn, it's not to hurt or harm you. It's to operate on you. It's to get you better.
It's necessary.
It's so necessary. So when you speak about being broken and when you speak about, feeling just kind of in disarray, oftentimes that chaos, that disarray is really you being operated on.
Right. Oh, that's dope. I like how you put that.
It's just the process of operation, and then the seclusion that you may experience is just you being put under, what's it called? Anesthesia.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you have to be pulled away. Sometimes people have to stop calling you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people have to break up with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to get fired.
What?
Sometimes you have to be put out. Sometimes you have to lose the car. You have to lose the job. You have to lose the cute clothes and the status in society to really have your soul prosper. And people don't see the value in that, and people don't see how important it is. I always pray for God to teach me how to be famous. I always pray for God to teach me how to be wealthy, because there's so much responsibility that comes with that. And if you're not right in your soul, in your mind, your will, and your emotions, you will lose it faster than you got it, or it will just break you down. So it's so important for us to allow ourselves to be our purpose versus do our purpose. And it's so important for us to lay those foundational principles within our territory, within our boundaries and our our borders and the walls that we have up. We have to tend to that garden.
Right.
We have to tend to that garden. We have to tend to what's on the inside of us, and we have to do it in humility. And I always say, you cannot humble yourself. No human being is going to be like, you know what, I'm just going to humble myself. Life humbles you. But we must understand that with humility comes honor. And when we recognize that, we unlock that door to everything that we want to experience. We unlock that door to great wealth and wisdom and prosperity. So really tapping into that voice that we spoke about, tapping into the who am I? Because you are lost if you don't know who you are.
Right.
And just like the chair, you cannot tell yourself who you are because you did not create yourself, although many of us want to believe that. So when we really tap into that voice and we tap into identity and we tap into purpose, we are laying the foundation, the principles on how we're going to run that territory and how we're going to run that domain on the inside of us. The other point I wanted to make when it comes to our borders, our boundary, our territory, our domain is what we manifest. We have to recognize that we co-create in the making of our lives. And we have to understand who we are in order to produce. We have to understand our purpose in order to produce. We have to be well and prosper in our soul in order to produce, because a lot of us are producing fruit that has what's those little
Mold?
mold. We got mold in there. We got steroids in there.
My God.
We got pesticide. We got all this perverted fruit that we just giving off.
No.
Cause I got an issue with strawberries that look a little deformed. I got issue if the strawberry isn't a certain shape, I'm not buying it. But we are truly producing these, chicken that looks like
with two heads or something
from a Fred Flintstone situation where it's I know this did not come from a regular chicken.
Nope.
We are out here in these streets producing fruit that has so many deformities, and it's linked into not knowing who we are. It's linked into not knowing our purpose. It's linked into our souls not being prosperous. So once we finally get to this phase of manifesting, we are able to create on a daily basis the fruit that we were created to produce. And that is in our garden. That's in our kingdom. That's in our territory and in our domain. It's producing this one-of-a-kind fruit that nobody else can produce and that nobody else was called to produce. So I always go with the blue gene theory. There's so many labels and stores and brands that create blue jeans. It's kind of like, why would you want to create a pair of blue jeans when so many other people have created them? But there's nothing like the pair of blue jeans that you create. You know what I mean? So really get into that space within ourselves. Once we discover who we are, once we discover the purpose, once we discover, just the prosperity of our soul, is what are we going to manifest? What are you manifesting in your kingdom today?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Girl, we need to really ask ourselves, what am I producing today? What am I manifesting? What am I creating? And sometimes the manifestation of a thing is not always this, a book. It's not always, a dope song. It's not always these material things. What are you manifesting in your soul today? What mountain are you getting over today in your personal life? What are you manifesting in the relationship with your children? What are you manifesting today? And we are literally every single day manifesting something. Again, going back to the fact that we breathe out carbon dioxide so that the trees can exist, and then the trees are releasing oxygen so that we can take that in. Every single day of your life, you are producing, you are manifesting. If you are thinking, you are producing. If you are speaking, you are producing. If you are breathing, you are producing. And this is the danger in becoming so physically busy that you miss out on the amazingly wonderful things that you're creating in the spirit world. Too much. It's like, for me, I used to have to need at least 10 things to do in one day because I literally felt like I'm not doing anything if I wasn't physically doing something. And the prosperity of your soul is the most beautiful space to manifest in, first and foremost. So just asking yourself, when somebody comes into my garden, when I open up those doors to my kingdom, what are people going to see? What type of trees will they see? What type of plants will they see? What type of energy? How will they feel when they're just in my presence, in my kingdom? This just feels so good. It's just like, what am I manifesting in my space? And sometimes you may have this little teeny weeny plant that's still growing, so you might have some little rough edges in there. But at the end of the day, your overall being and your overall energy, and understand that you cannot base who you are on the moments you spend with one person.
Right.
Because too much we focus on that one area, that one phone call, that one email, that one slip up. We give so much energy to that little shrub in the corner that's still being pruned and, clipped and watered and everything. We focus so much on that one seed that we forget about the garden.
The whole entire garden.
And we have to just keep our eyes on the garden of who we are. And that's why it's so important for your soul to prosper, because then you can just enjoy every part of who you are. The parts that are still growing and developing, and the parts that have 10-foot trees. You can just enjoy all of it and the entire process as it's happening. This hour goes way too fast. Way too fast. Once again, you have been tuning into Life Club with Tashima Jones, my homegirl Sunny on the boards. Today we were speaking about setting boundaries. Understand that more important than the boundaries is the territory inside of the boundaries. This has just been an amazing experience as always. I have 10,000 other things to say, but we're just going to put, the 3 dots to be continued. Sunny, where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram under I am Sunny Savage.
Heard you. And you can find me at tashimajones.com. All of my social media and contact information can be found there. Remember to focus on the territory within the boundaries. And until next time, remember your greatness. Talk soon. I am Tashima Jones, and you've been listening to Life Club. Thank you for tuning in.